This is a meeting, a workshop of the Marlin Independent School District Board of Trustees, held October 5th at 5 p.m. at the Marlin Middle School Library. Let's see, the subjects to be discussed or considered upon which any formal action may be taken are listed in the agenda. Items do not have to be taken in the same order as shown in this meeting notice unless removed from the consent agenda. Items identified within the consent agenda will be acted on at one time. We'll call to order first, roll call second. Burley and Terry.
Present.
Billy Johnson.
Here.
Danny Vickers. Let the record show there's a quorum present. We'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Those of you wearing masks are going to have to pledge a little louder. I couldn't hear anybody.
You have to do it yours for us.
Have any public comments? No public comments? All right. Then we're going to go into closed session right away pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.074 having to do with deliberation of personnel matters and 551.071 having to do with private consultation with and consideration of attorney's advice. We're in closed session. Is 501? Thank you. In the open session at 5:54, we're going to, I guess, move to number 8, the superintendent's report.
Board President Johnson, the Board of Managers will begin with our beginning of year NWEA map assessment results with Dr. Stacy Parker.
Good evening, Board President Johnson, members of the board, Dr. Henson. So tonight I'm going to present to you some of our assessment results from our beginning of the year assessment. So just a quick overview, we utilize NWEA, who's known as the Northwest Evaluation Association. They are an educational services organization that has a universal screener across our nation. We utilize their MAP growth assessment, which stands for Measure of Academic Progress, and it is an adaptive test, meaning that students begin on grade level and then it adapts based on their performance. We did administer the test for 15 days in September for grades kindergarten through 10th, and they use what's known as a RIT score as one of their measures, and that RIT stands for someone's name that created the statistical measure, but they also convert the grade to STAAR measures in grade level so that we can understand what those ranges are. It also reflects the instructional level for each student, and it measures their growth over time. They also provide several reports that give a view for data to multiple audiences, such as class report for our teachers, grade level report for the principals. We have a district summary for district level personnel, and then there's even a student profile report for students and a family profile. So they offer all of the different viewpoints. So I want to walk you through what some of that data looks like. So they produce a RIT scale that shows shows the equivalency of those scores to the grade level. I did highlight the fall because that is the beginning of the year range. NWEA did do a reassessment of the scores based on the COVID closure that we felt, so the scores did adjust downward a bit based on what is now really referred to as a COVID slide. I wanted to show you that measure against us looking at first for our district report, the elementary district averages. And so this says for those grade levels in reading, we have for kindergarten an average score of 135.1. If we look at the scale, kindergartners should be about 136.65, which means that our kindergartens are at an expected entry level range across the district. However, the test determines that once a student tests a kid where they are, once they're in school and they're receiving quality instruction, naturally their proficiency should increase. So the scores across the middle of the year assessment and the end of the year assessment, you should see substantial growth based on all the knowledge the student acquires. You also notice that moving from grade level to grade level, the ranges start out wide because kids in early education get a lot of knowledge, but that score starts to narrow as we get to high school, middle and high school level, because they're just really fine-tuning a lot of their knowledge and skills, and it's not a lot of heavy first-time learning experience. So we want to also just show you, for instance, as we move up, taking a look at our fifth grade readers after they've been in school since kindergarten, the expected score for beginning of the year fifth grader is 204.48. Right now, our district average is 190.1. I want to point out that this is true to grade level scale. So 190 would track between the third grade, a little over third grade, beginning of the year out. So as a district right now, the average of our fifth graders are performing at a little bit higher third grade level, which is synonymous with the shutdown and the not earning for over half a year. Also looking at secondary, the same, notice some of the same trends as we look at our sixth grade students scoring at a 195.1, but when we look at sixth grade, should be 210.17. So again, we'll notice the similar trends, barely like hitting the beginning of the year fourth grade, a little slightly lower. So as we move up, we notice that our students as a whole are approximately 1.5 to 2 years behind grade level at this point.
Can we go back to the screen before? Okay, so you would say that kindergartners are right about where they should be?
Yes, sir.
First graders are a little bit weak on, but then your second and third graders seem to pick that up, and then it drops in fourth grade. So does that not tell you, or does it tell you, can you say that tells you that your problem is maybe in third grade? Or is it in fourth grade, or what?
I would say that third grade is probably where it begins, and losing those foundational skills are not strengthening from kindergarten through second grade. And so you start to see that decline. Also say for third grade literacy, that is approximately 94% new knowledge that they acquire in third grade. So third grade is a critical year for literacy and mathematics. So moving from third into fourth, where they're expected to shift from learning how to read to reading to learn, that's where we start to see some heavier decline, moving to that comprehension level when they're lacking in some of the phonemic early stages.
What would be the, what do we have, 2 second grades?
Yes, sir. There had an option in second grade. We have the growth reading K through 2, and then a reading 2 through 5. And so teachers had the option to test students on either test for second grade.
Okay.
There's no different in assessment. It starts them from their grade level. So I did show the 2 second just so that you see that we had more than 13 kids test.
Okay. I was looking at different numbers, sorry.
Absolutely. Any questions of the secondary level for reading?
And if you notice, our 9th grade students, they're in between a 5th and 6th grade level.
Yes.
And our 10th grade students are between a 6th and 7th grade level.
And so I did show you, I wanted to show you as well the same for mathematics. So when we look at, I did reflect the mathematics ranges, same as in reading different score points with the same concept were our box. So when we looked at math, I showed you for second grade, looking at second grade, 160.07. And so for this one, I showed you where they were tracking on level and then where we kind of started falling behind after second grade. So when you look at 5th grade, 198, you'll see that once again, that's slightly below the beginning of the year, 4th grade. So you start again to see those gaps widening after 3rd grade. And I would say with mathematics, that's indicative of early numeracy, the focus on that foundational from kindergarten to 2nd, and after that, moving students to be able to move to tougher concepts that require proficiency in that field. With secondary, the same as we see with our 6th graders, 201.8, and we look at our chart, that's slightly the middle to end year 4th grade level for our 6th graders. So again, same as reading, like they're falling somewhere between 1.5 years to 2 years behind as we move up beyond 3rd grade. Another report view that I wanted to highlight is our student profile. We have the ability to share with our students where they are so that we are able to set some growth goals from one test administration to the next. And so I wanted to give you 2 examples. For this mathematics example, this is both are 8th grade, an 8th grade student. The norm for 8th grade math is 224. We noticed that this one student was higher than the norm. And so that green means that the student has some strengths. The profile shows where the student ranked in the percentile. So this student is actually in the 65th percentile. So they are slightly above average of the norm. It also shows instructional areas, and it breaks down the areas by key concepts that students learn, and it will give the students an area of focus and their relative strengths. And so this particular student, while they're overall above the norm, could use a little more work in the data analysis range. And so it really gives our teachers and parents and students a good pinpoint view of what it is that needs to be improved upon. Therefore, it takes the guesswork out of where students struggle and where we need to help them to close some of the academic gaps. Another thing about the student profile is that it shows projections to STAAR. It shows that based on how a student is performing today, if they maintain the knowledge that they have right now, if they were to take the STAAR today, where would they score? Well, this student is already slated to score a meets. So if this student just maintains, we definitely want that student to grow, definitely in their academic knowledge. But if they were to maintain, this student is already slated to meet the state standard. Looking at reading, with another scenario, this is a student that falls slightly below the norm of the 218. So what it shows here is that this student is below the average, and they're in the 32 percentile range. This student is projected to get approaches on the STAAR if they maintain the same level. But this is the danger zone. We definitely want to work with the student to get that proficiency a little higher. And then same, it shows that the instructional areas. And this is live, so teachers and parents have the ability, the teachers have the ability to drill down and click in the different areas to get more information about what specific skill needs improvement. And then taking a look at our district and how our district measures to the STAAR overall, we looked at math, and so it says if we're projected to how would we perform based on our math data now if we were to take the STAAR in spring. And so you can see for elementary right now 66.2% are slated to not meet if they were not to increase in their performance or proficiency at this stage. 27.9% approaches, 5.1% meets, and 0.7% masters. And that's just where students are right now. Middle school, 43.4% does not meet, approaches 48.4%, meets 7.4%, and then masters 0.8%. So you'll see similar trends where our students that are slated to achieve a master, that means that they are well above level, is a significant low. We do have several students in the does not meet category for work. A glow is at the high school for algebra. Of the students that have taken the MAP assessment, only 21.1% slated to not meet, 57.9% in approaches, 21.1% meets. However, they don't have any students right now that's performing at a master's level. And then just to highlight reading to the STAAR. Now we did, our students did assess in reading in through 10th grade, and we have individual results for our high school because the Texas standards are new this year. NWEA doesn't have an English 1 or English 2 conversion just yet for a district overall performance. But for our elementary students, the same, similar to that 59.5% does not meet, 29.4 approaches, 7.8 meets, and 3.3% slated masters.
And is there a reason they group the elementary and middle together like that and high school separately?
Yes, because elementary, they take the STAAR and the English 1 takes English in the EOC, and of course English 1, English 2. Algebra 1, those scores have been set in place for several years now. The last mathematics adoption was 2014, but for literacy, it's brand new this year, so it's did not have that correlation data. So our results are in. What next? So we are now conducting weekly academic meetings to leverage the support of all instructional coaches and deans, and we're leading with the data in mind. We have looked at, and we're having talks around modified schedules to devote more time to intervention in conjunction with on-grade level instruction. We're also realigning some of the curriculum documents to reflect the target focus based on our data and the use of appropriate resources for the skills needed. We're doing curriculum walks, Dr. Henson and I at the district and at the campus levels, and we're focusing on pacing and the curriculum to target these skills. We're also going to do tiered intervention support with weekly progress checks for growth in concept areas, and we're focusing on foundational literacy and numeracy for all of our students. We do recognize some of the data reflect that some of our middle and high school students are at foundational level. Any questions?
Mr. Lawrence Galloway with targeted improvement plans.
Good evening, Board President Johnson, members of the board, Dr. Henson. To move forward from what Dr. Parker just presented, we take all this information and data and we have to create what's called a targeted improvement plan for the district. As you know, we are in our status, particularly at our elementary campus. So we move through this plan, which is outlined by TEA, and being that each of our 3 campuses are in different places. One, our high school, they got a D in one of the 3 domains, in which they got a D in 2 domains when it comes to state accountability. Then our middle school is a first year overall F, and our elementary is actually beyond the 4th year, but for multiple years as F. So this is where we are as a district. And these are some of the requirements that we have to complete to make sure that we are in compliance at the state level as well as the federal level. And so today, what I would like to talk to you about is your roles and responsibilities of what we have to present to you all to make sure that we are in compliance at state and federal accountability levels, to make sure that we move out of IR. So part of that process today, as we bring up and talk about target improvement plans, and within the next 30 days or so, you will be presented, we will have on the website actually, target improvement plans by each campus and as well at the district level to get feedback from our community. And from our community, from there, you will be presented again with the target improvement plans so that we can submit to TEA at that point. From there, we will have a vote in which we will submit to TEA, and they will say we have a systematic plan to make sure that we're moving all of our campuses to the required student achievement. Then there's a rubric process. Part of this rubric process, actually tomorrow, Region 12 is coming out to work with each campus individually to look over their draft target improvement plan to make sure that it's ready for submission on Friday, October the 9th. From there, they do a review, give us feedback, and the final submission is in December. So you may see this actual rubric and the feedback that we get from the community a couple times before we do our final submission in December. The 2 focus areas based on the data that we received from NWEA maps and also other tangible data that we've seen just through observation, feedback from parents, feedback from you all. We picked 2 focus areas or essential actions. 5.1 daily driven lesson plans with formative assessments, which a part of that is the NWEA maps information where we do the BOY, MOY, and EOY. So we drive instruction and drive the curriculum that helps students move into student achievement and increase our student achievement. The other essential action is data-driven instruction. Again, this is part of the Achieve 3000 programs that you may hear us talk about. Other curriculum supports and resources that we use to make sure students are successful in all content areas. These 2 areas we feel very strongly will move Marlin forward academically. From those priority focus, and this is just a snapshot of the district, we have 5 priority areas in which kind of are like pillars under those 2 essential actions. And all of these priority focus areas deal with data-driven instruction, supporting the curriculum and the resources, as well as making sure students are successful based on the data that we have and how often we're taking the data. So you'll see this information as well with our campuses. We'll be doing the exact same thing on a more fine-tuned scale and what they're doing in actual individual classrooms. From there, we will come back to you in November for your actual approval of our district targeted improvement plan and individual campus improvement plans, which will come from a committee. Does anyone have any questions or feedback?
requirements as it pertains to attendance and providing instruction. So you know, in March, the schools shut down abruptly and they went to just planning instruction and support and not taking attendance. Well, now they've made a shift to develop a framework that funds schools to provide instruction. So they're now shifting the focus to students that are learning remotely, that they are receiving quality instruction. The framework that they developed did provide maximum grace to districts to allow time to transition for the new school year while maximizing funding stability. So these changes will only apply for the 2020-21 school year, and there were 2 new methods developed to fund remote instruction. So the main purpose of having and developing a learning plan is to secure attendance and funding for our students that are learning remotely. The 2 methods that they created to fund remote instructions were one method, synchronous instruction, which required all participants to be present at the same time virtually throughout the instructional day. The second method was asynchronous instruction, which did not require all participants to be virtually present at the same time. The intent, however, for both plans is to provide quality instruction for all students. Based on equitability and access concerns with our district, with the network, we chose the asynchronous method with synchronous expectations. And then just showing you the Texas Education Code did require both instructional delivery formats be developed to cover the required curriculum. So just a recap of asynchronous instruction, it was being established as a commissioner waiver. If the districts, we had to apply to receive the waiver by issuing a letter of intent. I issued the letter of intent stating that we would be submitting an asynchronous plan, and now it is time for that full plan to be submitted to TEA for approval. The plan had to be comprehensive, and it's included in your board packet. The plan covered 4 key areas. We had to focus in on the instructional schedule, showing the state what instruction looks like for a student that is at home learning. We had to focus in on material design, showing examples of our curriculum and ensuring that our curriculum is aligned to the state standards and have all of the supports needed for all of our learner types. We also had to demonstrate student progress. So just as Mr. Galloway and myself presented on how we're leading through data, our plan had to show where we are monitoring and tracking daily student progress as it pertains to their learning goals. And then the 4th component of the plan had to discuss implementation, where we assure TEA that we are providing our teachers with full support around professional learning and guidance on how to provide remote instruction, as well as our parents and community on how to leverage the use of that. I wanted to highlight that although it's an asynchronous plan, this plan can include differentiation by grade and subject. So even with our asynchronous plans, the expectation is that our students have live instruction and contact with the teacher during the day. So just wanted to highlight again a brief timeline. The letter of intent was July 9th, and that's been submitted. And so we're here for the online application to be approved. And the final step of submitting our asynchronous plan is to obtain board approval to submit that plan forward as written. The initial review period to be submitted was October 1st. That's been submitted for initial review from the state. They will give feedback in which I confirm that we've been given the green light to move forward with the plan. And then again, just the plan focuses on the district's commitment to ensure a robust education for all of our students, including virtual learners during this national crisis. Any questions?
You see a day when the choice that a student makes to do in-person learning or distance learning tied to some sort of performance level? In other words, if you are cranking out a B or maybe even a high C, then you qualify for distance learning as opposed to, the D and F student,
Have to come face to face.
which is not helping them, I wouldn't think.
Right, well, the state has frowned upon that. Some districts have tried that method of saying, we've actually had some districts that, got a slap on the wrist for saying, if you are failing, you must come in face to face right
Yes.
now. Yes, because right now the state, is mandated stating that because of the COVID crisis and the fears that families may have about coming back into the school, that is the basis for them being able to elect. Now, districts do have the choice to limit that election to at the beginning of the grading period. So we have chosen that election, so our students and families must opt in at the beginning of a grading period. They can't just keep changing back and forth and change their mind. So we do have that strict process in place. But the state says right now, it is solely tying this to how they fund for attendance, but they did want to make sure we address students that need special educational accommodations, students that may be dyslexic, or that how are we leveraging that support. So that's what we're working on.
And or do we limit the number of students who can do the distance learning?
No, sir,
There's
right now.
not a limit,
it's Open to all.
I see.
Yes, sir.
Don't you find that the children want to be here?
Yes, right now, we really have of all of our population, we have right around a third of our population that opted in. So even with some of our COVID cases that we've had, we did not see a large jump from our first 6 weeks to students switching to online. So our switch over in the second 6 weeks was not as significant as I thought maybe would be once we had a COVID case. So I find that more of our families do want to be in person. Learning.
And this does conclude the superintendent's report.
Okay. And we will consider the consent agenda, report just made on the asynchronous plan, and then separately or together, if you all want, the vote on whether to retain Pearson Legal under the conditions that we've been discussed. Entertain a motion.
To have it in here.
Nope, have to wing it.
Well, I move that the Marlin ISD, Dr. Parker, what's that? How do you
Adopt
say?
it.
Asynchronous.
Okay.
Adopt the consent agenda.
Plan be approved as written.
And it's all one vote
It's all-
right now if you want to do it that way.
Yeah.
As a consent agenda. Want to move that we
I move that
approve?
we approve the consent agenda. How about
I'll
that?
Motion
second.
been made and seconded. Any other discussion? If not, please signify your vote by raising your right hand. All in favor, say, raise your right hand. All opposed, ayes have it, 3-0. And failing any other business, thank you all for coming. We're adjourned.